All right, so today we're going to be talking about the first migration story to the Americas. Who were the first people? Why did they get there? How did they get there? And just some other things, some civilizations and shit. We'll talk a lot about a lot of shit. So first, I would like to say that it's generally widely accepted that Native Americans were here before 1492, here before Christopher Columbus, and that's unfortunately for a lot of people, that's as far as that knowledge goes on on this subject. I'm here to spread some light. Now, the first people that migrated from the Americas were from the northeastern, even lower to the southeastern Asian continent. Uh, Majority of these ancient groups were from around modern day Siberia down even towards Mongolia and things like that. And it began around, some people say 16 to 20,000 years ago. I've done a little research, a little bit more research, I feel, if you come to that conclusion. Uh, there was groups, the Clovis people. There's a lot of these groups that date to around 20, 25,000 to 30,000 years ago. I feel like the people that do the research on and get the 16,000 number, I think they're researching the groups that stayed in Alaska, which and when the indigenous people, they migrated over via the Bering Strait, which was a, I'll put a picture up too. It was a land bridge connecting northeast Russia and Alaska at one point. It's the Bering Strait. It was also called Beringa. And for these Native American groups, eventually when they started to invent their own language, it was known as the motherland. So the first question would probably be why? Why did they cross this bridge? And it's so far back that nobody really knows for sure, but I think it's widely accepted that the people that first stumbled upon this land bridge were simply hunters. They were the gatherers, the hunters, they're survivors in these tribes, usually called herd followers. They would follow these mammoths and these animals they would eat, ancient bison, mammoths, fucking the shit they ate back then. I mean, you've seen Ice Age, you could probably think. And speaking of the Ice Age, that's around the time the journey began to cross the Bering Strait. If you look on the map, you probably will like, what the well, I don't see that. This must not be true. And the reason that you don't see the Bering Strait anymore is simply because of sea levels rising. Ice Age melted the when it melts, clearly ice turns into water. It fills the oceans in these certain spots that were not were once exposed or no longer exposed. And yeah, so typically, once they get in Alaska, they would stay there for thousands of years. They would have families, populations were growing into the tens of hundreds of thousands. They were all over Alaska. That's why you get Alaskan natives. Those were shit older. They're honestly older than the natives that most people probably know, which is like the Choctaw, the Ho Chunk, Cherokee, things like that. These natives are actually older. But anyways, we have once they're in Alaska, they started, you know, uh, moving along the land more, and it took a bit for them to do so because there was ice sheets everywhere. So with these ice sheets, you had one route that they could take to venture down more into North America, which would be the ice-free corridor. So there is speculation that there was a gap between these ice sheets that would likely go from, Alaska clearly, but down into Canada and from some research I've done on some other topics with the Vikings, I think that the uh, the gap between the ice sheets maybe could have went towards in the area of you know what's it called, like Hudson Bay. It's a big ass gulf kind of in Canada. It's near like Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, even more Greenland and shit like that too. I think that that could have been where that route went, and they had another route which would be taking the Pacific Ocean coast, uh, probably down towards South America. Um, I haven't really done too much research or even looked into it too much. But from the most part, I believe that the South American ancient civilizations were here before uh, architect and shit we find in North America. So I would assume that the Pacific route took them towards South America, which probably wasn't covered in as much ice and things as North America because it gets warmer within that region. Um, so with that being said, they would probably yeah, take the coastal route down to South America, and over thousands of years, these Native Americans, they would eventually develop language. They would get into astrology, physics, some early forms of math. These were pretty intelligent people. Um, there was a lot of different civilizations. There was a lot of different groups, and during this, there's this. I won't say all of South America, but the northern part of South America going towards Central America, which would be like El Salvador, uh, Honduras, things like that. That's the Central America. They would collectively, this would be known as Mesoamerica. Some notable civilizations from around this time would be the Olmecs, the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Inca. And just real quick, I've seen a lot of these things about the Olmecs potentially being uh, Africans that traveled. Personally, I don't think so. Even though it's a conspiracy, it's likely, just like a lot of conspiracies are likely to be true. But for the most part, there has been no DNA proof for this. Which I know DNA isn't always accurate when it comes to your ancestry and your you know like where your people are originating from. It's not always accurate, but for the most part, it is. Um, with that being said, but there was traces found towards the people that were in Veracruz, well, the modern day Veracruz around that time. Um, primarily, these groups would be Central America, even up towards southern Mexico, like Mexico City. I believe that's where the Aztecs. I think it was either the Aztecs or the Inca. Is that I'm pretty sure. Um, and don't get it fucked up. The North American tribes too, the ones that eventually did migrate up more northern, or was just there for however long from the migrating from the motherland. They had ancient civilizations too. I'm probably not going to pronounce it right, but it's the Cahokia, Cahokia, and Pueblo peoples. These were primarily groups that were all along the Mississippi River. From I believe where it starts, which is around Minnesota, down to where it ends in Louisiana. Um, they had a lot of archaeological things going on. They were good with building. I believe there is even some ancient ruins and shit in certain parts of North America. Um, yeah. So to further talk about the whole thing with the Olmecs, because I really don't like seeing this type of shit. I'm not saying, like the Africans couldn't have, but I feel like the chances are low. Uh, you know, Obviously the very distant ancestors of all humans came out of Africa, clearly. But like I said, Olmecs strongly resemble indigenous groups of modern day Veracruz. This theory, which claims Nubian sailors traveled to Mexico, is generally considered false by historians. The notion that the pyramids must be connected or that the scripts are linked is often based on coincidence. Um, the human brain only has so many ways to depict things for the average, and back then, obviously, the IQ was probably a lot lower. Um, in terms of the scripts, there's already been kind of like a debunk, which is the discovery of the cathedral block. It clearly shows that the Olmec culture had its own independent inventions of writings. Uh, and I would just like to say, like for a lot of other things, there doesn't always need to be a global connection for similar ideas to emerge. You know what I'm saying? And as for that, like I said, they're there for a long time, thousands of years, past tens of thousands. We're getting to, we're gonna fast forward to 5 to 700 years before Christopher Columbus even was thought about going to traveling westward. So we all know about the story of Christopher Columbus, but clearly he wasn't the first European to travel. And for a lot of people, they say, well, they would agree with what I'm saying, but they would be like, oh yeah, that's because the natives were there. True, they were the first people to inhabit and find the land. But the thing is that that Christopher Columbus was not the first European to even see North America. The people that did were the Norse, which would be the Vikings and uh, Icelanders, Greenlanders, those people, the ancient groups that were there. The Vikings that we all probably think about. I know you guys have played fucking God of War, like in Norse mythology. That those people that believed in those things are the ones that traveled the world and they stumbled upon it. I'm gonna go deeper into it. It's widely accepted that the first person to step foot on North American soil, the first European would be Leif Erikson. You've watched SpongeBob, you know the Leif Erikson Hinga Dinga Durgan bullshit. You've probably seen that, but it goes farther back than that. I'm gonna fucking cruise this guy's name, but it was a man named Berjani Herjolfsson. He was blown off course on a voyage from Iceland to Greenland. I believe it was to uh, his father or something of that sort. But basically, he accidentally ended up spotting the northern coast of modern day Canada, which was about 500 years before Christopher Columbus in 1492. Um, this specific thing, with Bajani, it inspired Leif Erikson. So Leif Erikson bought Bajani's ship to investigate what he witnessed. Um, Not just to mention, but uh, the northern coast would be Newfoundland, um, Nova Scotia, those things. Anyways, Leif Erikson bought Bajani's ship to investigate, and when he arrived, he found people already there. Of course, the Native Americans, um, likely some Eskimos traveling down from the Arctic Circle, which, if you don't know, is basically a big ass circle that goes in, what we'll say, from around northern Canada some of Alaska, I believe Russia. It's a circle. Originally, these Native Americans that he stumbled upon were Algonquian groups, like the Beothuk and things like that. The Greenlanders and Icelanders that eventually ended up going over there throughout time. But we'll talk about Leif Erikson. He, they attempted to trade, and they were trading for a while. But eventually, as the Europeans tend to do, they want to colonize. And this time it failed. Um, the Native American military back then, the ancient militaries and the ancient groups, they were very, very strong, advanced, and outnumbered, very outnumbered. Most groups, I mean, it was a strong civilization. These were strong people. In their attempt to colonize, they failed, mainly because of numbers. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Is just give like a little history lesson. Uh, I will say though that the story of the Americas is definitely a testament to human resilience, migration, and the creation of great civilizations that existed for millennia. I mean, it doesn't start with Christopher Columbus, but with those travelers crossing a frozen land bridge tens of thousands of years ago. And just for the comments, I would like to ask, any questions. If you want to debate something, whatever the fuck the case may be, comment. I do have a question. What part of history surprised you the most? And yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and yeah, I don't know if this video will come out, but if it does, you my goat.